Good day, good afternoon, everyone. Super excited about today's episode, and welcome to the Management West Show, brought to you by the team at CEO Mastermind.ai. Today, I'm joined by a friend of mine, Sarah Nay. She's the CEO of Duct Tape Marketing, and excitedly, the author of the recently released book called Unchained, and we're going to talk about that. So, Sarah's helped. There's not too many people that can say this, but she's honestly helped thousands of businesses escape the chaos of sort of marketing and helping them build systems that work and all the things to help align strategy and people and technology, which is always something that's critically important to review and talk about. So we're going to talk about a lot of things today. Think about the operating systems in marketing, how to create clarity, all these things that most people kind of get wrong. At least in my experience, a lot of times I find especially small businesses, is that they think they can be experts at marketing and they think at a very tactical level. And then they get lost and wonder why it doesn't work. And Sarah will take us up all the way up to the psychology and the strategy level, which is really important. And having grown up in Fortune 500 company, everybody thinks they're a marketer, but they don't think like one. And so what ends up happening is, it's like me pretending to be a brain surgeon all of a sudden, telling the brain surgeon what to do. They're going to look at me and saying, what? Doesn't really work that way. So there's a lot of science and there's a lot of art behind it. And Sarah's going to unpack some of that for us. So Sarah, welcome to the show, and thank you for your time.
Excited to see where our conversation goes today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you did a presentation for our group a little while back. People really loved it, thought it was one of the best presentations and speakers that they've had for a while. And when you think about the book called Unchained, like what are some of the, biggest change, if you will, that you see that is holding back leaders and marketing teams?
Yeah, so the full name is Unchained: Breaking Free from Broken Marketing Models. And so I've been in the small business agency space for about 16 years now. As you said in my intro, I've spoken with thousands of small business owners, marketing consultants, agencies, fractional CMOs throughout those years. And so over the last several years, I've felt that there's something that's broken essentially in the marketing, small business marketing today. And so I
Yeah.
started feeling that internally, but then I started having more and more conversations with prospects and clients and also agency owners that were feeling the same way as well. And so in the book, I actually introduce a concept that I call the anti-agency model. And when I first introduced that, people were like, wait, what is Sarah talking about? Doesn't she run an agency? Doesn't she support agencies and train agencies? And absolutely, yes, I do. I was not saying that agencies are bad with that statement. What I'm saying is the model is broken. And so it's really broken for a number of different reasons that's really been heightened with AI recently. But where it's broken is there's a lot of small businesses out there that are just outsourcing and delegating their marketing and losing complete control. And there's also a lot of agencies that are taking that control and also not coming at it from a strategic perspective. And so they might just be executing for their clients, owning the marketing initiatives, but not even educating or informing their clients as to what they're doing or how it's being done. And so I've talked to a number of people. I share some examples in the book, and so I spoke to someone recently, and it was two partners, and they owned a home remodeling business. They were using someone to run their Google ads. They were
Hmm.
paying this contractor, I think it was like $6,000 a month, but they had no idea out of that how much money was actually going towards their ads versus how much
Hmm.
that contractor was keeping for managing the ads. And they also had no idea if their ads were working or not because the contractor was just kind of handling it over here. So they just kept paying because they thought they needed Google Ads, but they didn't even know
Yeah.
if it was working or not. And so that's just one example. I run into stories all the time. And so I really think the best path forward for small businesses is collaborating with your outsourced solutions versus simply delegating to them or outsourcing and losing control.
Yeah, that's an important piece. I think also too, I was taught like there's a model where it's like I gotta spend X percentage of in some business models, I gotta spend 10% of my money on this and think, okay, I've
Yeah.
done my 10%. and I'll hand it over to, Jane and Bob Smith Consulting, marketing consultants, and think that they're doing the job. And
Yeah.
I always said, good marketing works. But we say, oh, marketing doesn't work. Well, no,
Mhm.
marketing always works every single time, but it starts with strategy, which is what you talk about, and it starts with tracking things. And that your story that you just shared is so common because people say, yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
spending 10 grand a month, whatever number, whether it's
Yeah.
100,000, whatever number that is, doesn't matter. But there's no, they delegate. You said it best. Like they're just like off delegating, and you probably wouldn't do that with anything else in your business, but for some reason, it seems that they do it with marketing, which is even
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, there's a client of ours actually that we've been working with for about a year now, and over the year, we've saved them $400,000 on marketing spend, because before they were, and that's just this year alone, because before they were working with us, they were just spending, and they had no idea if it was working. But they were, yeah, as your
Yeah.
point, they were spending a percentage of their revenue that they thought they should spend. And so when we came in, we analyzed like, okay, what's actually working? What are you actually getting a return on? Where should you focus your efforts? And we let them cut out a ton of spend, and their revenue is continuing to increase at even a greater rate as it was when they were spending all of that money, because now they're focusing on the right channels with the right message to the right people versus trying to be everywhere. And that's another challenge too with businesses.
Yeah, they they sprinkle, right?
Mhm.
There's like the shotgun approach, which is a scalpel approach, and
Yeah.
and it takes a lot of money to get it right, right? And so it's important to be, I guess one of the other questions, you talk a lot about strategy before tactics, and so,
Yeah.
you know, like what is the framework that you would, and I know what it is, so I'm setting you up for it. So the framework by which people to think about, when they approach their marketing.
Yeah. So we have a framework we call Strategy First that we've been working with clients for years now at this point. But where a lot of people get confused in marketing is they just start executing without having the clear plan in place, and they also just start bringing in people or technology without having the clear plan in place, and so everyone ends up confused and expensive and complicated. And so we believe taking a step back and mapping out a strategy is absolutely essential. And so our approach includes doing an audit of where marketing exists today. So we call it a marketing and brand audit, an analysis of how it is today, competitive research, interviewing some of the best clients to develop ideal client profiles, and then messaging that speaks directly to those people. And so those are, in my mind, step one and two of marketing. If you haven't clearly identified those pieces, you're playing the guessing game and you're wasting money, in my mind. And so when I talk about ideal client profiles, it's not high level demographics. It's literally what keeps your clients up at night. What are they stressed about? Where do they find information? Who do they talk to? Who do they rely on? Who do they see as mentor? Like understanding them on a people level, not just
Mm.
a demographic level, is really important. And so after you've done that, you can then say, okay, now that we know who we're targeting, this message would resonate with them based on what they've been telling us. And then you can move into more of the planning phase of strategy. So I introduced a concept, we've been talking about this for a while, as well, called the marketing hourglass. So it's then, okay, how can we get these people to know, like, trust, try, buy, repeat, and refer our business? And then you can say, okay, what content do we need to create based on that? Then you can say, what are our biggest growth priorities for the next quarter? Usually limiting those to like 4 to 6 projects, and then putting all of that into an execution calendar. And so that's the full approach to strategy. A lot of times when we start working with businesses and they say, oh, I have strategy, they maybe have developed their ideal client profiles and some messaging, but they don't really have the planning. Or more common, what I see is people will say, I have strategy, and then they basically just have a list of tactics.
With the
And so,
tactics. So,
yeah, you really have to have the research that helps you create those tactics in order for them to actually be relevant.